Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. The Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power, Episode 3 brought the island kingdom of Numenor, and the first look of Joseph Maul as the main villain for Season 1, Adar. Personally, I think it's the best episode out of the three, and I am excited for the next one. And we have a brand new trailer, which provides clues on what to expect next, so of course we have to break it down. But as always, before we start, if you like what you see on the channel, please consider subscribing. So yes, The Rings of Power has an ensemble cast, so characters and plotlines drop out week to week. In the last episode, there were no dwarfs or elves of Lindon and Eregion. But in this episode, Durin the Fourth and Elrond are back. But it looks like the Harfoots will be dropped this week. But don't worry, I'm sure they'll be back in episode 5. But for now, we are returning to Khazad-dûm, Numenor and the Southlands. Bronwyn and her son Theo are also back, and right now I find the most exciting parts of the story are as follows. First, who is Adar? Is he a fallen elf, working for Sauron, or perhaps the Dark Lord himself? Who is Halbrand, the supposed uncrowned king of the Southlands? Is he Sauron, the Witch King, or maybe someone else? Who is the stranger? Is he Sauron, or another fallen Maiar? Maybe Gandalf, or a blue wizard? What is Theo's broken blade, which bears the mark of Sauron, which we know is now simply the map of Mordor? And many of us have likened it to a Morgul knife of sort. And it could be what the orcs are looking for in the Southlands. And what does Celebrimbor have in mind when building his forge? Hotter than a dragon's tongue, but as pure as starlight. Has he already met with Anatar? Will Durin the Fourth and the dwarfs dig too greedily and too deep, and stumble across a Balrog? I think most of these questions will remain a mystery until far beyond episode 4, but I think Adar will play a prominent role in this one. We might not learn who he is, but perhaps we learn what he is, and what he wants. Arondir has been brought before him, and he asks Adar who or what he is. And remember, Adar is an elven name translated to father, and the orcs worship him. I think he is one of the first elves that were taken by Morgoth, and as Saruman once said, they were elves once, taken by the dark powers, tortured and mutilated, a terrible, ruined form of life. I think Adar is literally the father of the orcs, one of the very first elves to suffer this fate. I'm not too sure if he's going to be a named character though. Perhaps someone Galadriel knows, maybe one of the kids that bullied her, maybe one of her former companions, maybe a famous Tolkien character. I think it does make sense for him to be someone she knows, or at least a named character. He is the face of the enemy until Sauron is ready to reveal himself. Next we have Halbrand, who was locked up after his little street fight in Numenor, and Galadriel pleads his case to Queen Regent Muriel, telling her that he is no common brawler, but rather the uncrowned rightful king of the Southlands. Galadriel wants Halbrand to unite his people against Sauron. And I think it's pretty obvious that Muriel is a secret faithful. She was testing Elendil, and she's met with her father to discuss some sort of prophecy concerning the arrival of Galadriel. And we know from the trailers, Muriel and Galadriel will lead an army of Numenorians into the Southlands. So this all sounds good, but it depends on who Halbrand really is, whether he is truly the rightful king to the Southlands. Perhaps Theo's father, the man that will one day become a Nazgul, the king of the dead. Or maybe it's all one big lie, and he is the Dark Lord Sauron himself. And you guys know my stance on this. I think Sauron is playing everyone. But I also know a lot of people have their own theories, and that's fine. I am open to all discussions, and I want to hear what you think. But I think because the final track in the score is Where the Shadows Lie, referring to the land of Mordor, I think Sauron shows up in the finale. And I think before that he has to appear in some sort of disguise. You can't have him just show up at the end. It won't have the same impact as him removing a disguise, having tricked everyone. But of course, these are just theories. We will have to wait and see what happens. And then we have Bronwyn of the Southlands leading her people to safety. But in reality, there is no safe place in the Southlands, which is destined to become the land of Mordor. Like I said, we know that Numenor does come to their aid, but for now it's all about survival. And I imagine word of Arondir's capture will reach Bronwyn somehow, and that might make her want to go looking for him. But I've never really been a fan of their romance. I'm more interested in her son's most recent discovery, the broken blade bearing the mark of Sauron. And Theo has spilt his blood onto the blade, and it started to reforge itself in fire and shadow. Is this blade what the orcs are looking for in the trenches that the elves are digging? Does Sauron need to reclaim this blade to take over the Southlands, to corrupt the people, or even to activate Mount Doom itself and transform the land into Mordor? Perhaps the blade is thrown into the dormant volcano after absorbing Theo's blood, and I think he has performed some sort of unwilling blood oath to Sauron, and I think he is now cursed. He bears the mark of Sauron on his arm, and is now a beacon for all evil. And whatever happens in the Southlands, it's all centred around him. And many think he might become a Nazgul one day. Just like Halbrand, there are so many theories on his identity. His father being a king of the Southlands, either Halbrand or the man that Sauron is pretending to be. But perhaps he doesn't become a Nazgul, but rather suffers another horrible fate. And I also want to talk about the innkeeper, Waldreg. He's hanging about the poor boy, and he's kind of creeping him out. In the main trailer, he asks Theo if he's heard of Sauron. I don't think this man is cruel or one of Sauron's minions, but now I think that Theo is cursed. He's going to start having visions and hallucinations, and any mention of the word Sauron triggers him. And now we go on to Durin IV. The dwarfs and Elrond return after a week off, and they're making good progress in the old mine, digging for more of their latest and greatest discovery, Mithril. And if you go back to the main trailer, there was a scene of a fallen leaf from Linden that falls down the mine shaft and catches fire when it hits the ground, and a Balrog appears. And that Balrog is very, very similar to Durin's Bane from the Peter Jackson movies. The horns are slightly different, but it's clearly a Balrog, and it has to be Durin's Bane. But Durin's Bane is currently asleep in Khazad-dûm. He is the one that Gandalf the Grey gives his life, defeating in the Third Age. The Balrog is not meant to show up in the Second Age. It was not Durin the Fourth, but rather Durin the Sixth that died in the Third Age, 1980. He awoke the Balrog by digging too greedily and too deep, and was slain by the fallen Maiar. But with how much the timeline has been compressed, and how iconic the Balrog is, do we really think Amazon will pass up the opportunity to have him appear? Are they bringing the Durin the Sixth storyline forward? Will he destroy the dwarfs of Khazad-dûm now, or maybe later? Maybe he wakes up in Season 1, after the dwarfs dig around his lair, he roars a bit, then goes back to sleep. But yes, Durin IV is back, and you know I'm going to like that because he was my favourite character in the first 2 episodes. And it seems like Elrond is still hanging about in Khazad-dûm, working out the details of the Eregion Khazad-dûm Workforce Alliance, and hang around with his best pal. 20 years is not a long time for an elf, but for a dwarf, a lot has changed. He's got married, he's had kids, they've got a lot catching up to do. But I could also see Elrond warning his friend that digging too deep might be dangerous. I don't think Elrond knows there's a Balrog sleeping down there, but I think he's cautious and very suspicious of what might be down there, especially if it starts getting a bit hot down there. And as for the Harfoots and the Stranger, and also Gil-galad and Celebrimbor, I don't think they're showing up in this episode. The last trailer only showed characters and locations we visited in the actual episode, and I've got a feeling that trend will continue this week. I think we'll go to the Southlands of Arondir, meet again with Bronwyn and Theo, stay on Numenor with Galadriel, Halbrand, Miriel and Elendil, but we won't be seeing any more Harfoots, we won't be going to Linden and Eregion this week, but they will be back soon enough. The Brandyfoots and the Stranger are on the migration now, at the back of the caravan, and we know at one point they will bump into some wolves, as seen in the trailer. But I think after 3 episodes in, we should have gotten to this point after 2. But once the Stranger starts showing off more of his hidden power, and we get more clues to who he really is, I will be more invested. And really, there's not much for Gil-galad and Celebrimbor to do right now. And it's such a shame because you have 2 legends of the Second Age demoted to background characters. But at the same time, what's going on behind the scenes has huge consequences to the final outcome, the Rings of Power. But there's still a lot that needs to happen before we get to that point. I am enjoying the show, but I kinda wish they get a move on, and get to the point that we really came here to see. Sauron's master plan to dominate the elves, and later, the rest of the Free Peoples. But I think that's enough. Let me know your thoughts on episode 4. You've probably noticed the trailer isn't actually available to find online very easily. Unlike HBO, who upload all their Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon stuff straight to their YouTube channel, Amazon seem to keep all their next episode previews on Amazon Prime. And I'd love to show you guys the trailers in the video, but I've had so many problems in the past with copyright, so I'm just going to leave it. I can use screen caps, but when it actually comes to footage, I've had problems in the past. I know some people get away with it, but it doesn't work for me. But at least we can talk about it and preview the next episode here. But yes guys, we've got so many more videos coming. I will leave a link to my Sauron theory video, and also my episode 3 review, and a whole bunch of House of the Dragon stuff as well. And if you're interested in that, please consider subscribing. But for today, I'll say thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you soon.